Welcome to this week's energy series. We are Corey, Peyton, and myself, Yaila. And this week we are talking about judgment, all about judgment, being a judgment, feeling judged. So, kicking today off, how about you, Corey? How would you like to start with judgment?
Ooh, judgment. Dun, 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 judgment. Oh, you know what? This is a great topic. And, when I think of judgment, gosh, I think of a lot of things. When you, Yaila, when you said, about judgment, are you feeling judged? That's what resonates with me, but judgment. We're getting a lot of that these days. Judgment, people judging others, judging them for what they're doing or what they're saying or what they believe. And it's actually one of my it's a big trigger actually of mine. And it actually, when I feel the energy of judgment, it hurts my heart, honestly. It does hurt my heart. I always to be treated. I know that sounds so cliche, but I do. I live my life that way. And I've been seeing a lot of judgment around. And I have a lot of clients that are in that judgment space. And so what do we do about that? It's one of the early teachings that I had when I was on this journey was getting neutral about what triggered me and the energy that was living in my body. And I had a lot of energy that was drawing a lot of judgment towards me. And so it was time for me to do the shadow work, to take a look at what was it within me that was drawing judgment towards me. And when I was able to get neutral in that energy, it was very freeing for me. And it also freed me from judging others. Early in my life growing up, there's a lot of judgment in my family. My family really judged others, that they should act a certain way, they should say a certain thing, they should dress a certain way. And I came up with this term the last 5 years or so, I think, that I say to my clients and my students a lot is, please don't should all over yourself. Don't should all over them. Shoulds always lead to judgment. So judgment is when there's something inside of us that we are not happy about, something about ourselves that that brings that energy of judgment up to judge others. And right now on this planet, we could use all the love that we can get. We are all in this together, and judgment doesn't help anyone or any situation. So I have a lot of clients that I'm working with right now on that judgment. And judgment too comes from beliefs of what we were brought up with. We have beliefs that, growing up in a family, we take on those generational beliefs that cause judgment of good or bad, right or wrong. And I've come to learn in this journey, the spiritual journey, that really there are only lessons. What lessons are you willing to learn in whatever path that you choose to take? And that helped me a lot with judgment. I love to work with the angels. And they have taught me a lot of compassion, because they've given me a lot of compassion when I needed it. And they have taught me that because they have given me so much compassion, that I am to give compassion. So judgment comes out of fear of the unknown, fear of not getting what we want, fear of not being loved like we want to be loved. And I have found that in the spiritual journey, that I have found so much love from my spirit guides, from the angels, from the creator of all that is. And when I have found that love and allowed it to come in to my being, that it is much easier for me to pay it forward, so to speak. So we have a lot of judgment right now, a lot of judgment in politics, a lot of judgment in everywhere on the planet right now. And so I try and encourage my clients to write gratitude lists. What are you grateful for? Trying to switch that energy and to do the shadow work, to look at those places within themselves that are causing judgment. And we go back to, old beliefs. So oftentimes it's, Yaila and I both do theta healing. Theta healing has been a life changer in helping with that judgment by going to the core beliefs. I also do hypnosis, and that has been a great relief for my clients. And the clairvoyant work of energy. What is the energy of judgment? What does it look like to you, and where is it living in your own being, so that it can be cleared? Because judgment is dividing. It divides us. It says that, I'm better than you, or I'm less than you. And it's a separation energy. And, we're all in this together. And none of us are any better than anybody else, in my belief. I've come to this place in my life where we're all part of the whole. And so judgment is a biggie, along with fear right now. And we've done a video on fear, and that will be a great video to watch as well. So what have you got, Peyton? What have you got on judgment?
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said. For me, judgment has been one of my bigger challenges on the spiritual path. I always kind of thought that I wasn't a super judgmental person. I try to live and let live. I try to, let people do what they want to do and be who they are. But my guides came in about a year and a half ago and said very gently, we might need to redefine judgment. And so they wanted me to understand that judgment is not just when we are saying or doing something that is exclusive or, finding fault with someone. What they pointed out was that we're in judgment anytime we have that reaction of dislike, that feeling that we like to say in the spiritual community, something not resonating. Anytime we're in that state of, you get that feeling in your gut of like pulling away from something, my guides are like, every time you do that, you're in judgment. And it made me kind of stop and think. And after about a day or two, I'm like, oh my God, I do that all the time, like all day long. I will hear something on TV. I will see something on social media. I'll see someone doing something that I don't resonate with. And even though I would never say anything, so I thought I was not in judgment, that sense of kind of pulling away, thinking, oh, that's not for me. My guides were pointing out that that is all judgment. So we actually judge much more than we think we do. And so what that made me realize is it's something that I really need to keep my eye on, because especially those of us who tend to spend more time in our brains, if we're more left brain, spend more time in the mind, all the mind does is judge. It is designed to separate. And so what I realized is I really was judging a lot more than I realized. And so what was important for me in kind of figuring out how do I move out of this kind of automatic, it was kind of an automatic response for me. This automatic, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, because I always had an opinion, which of course is just being in judgment. And so what has helped me a little bit with kind of lessening being in judgment mode is just to be paying more attention to my thoughts and catching myself sooner when I notice I'm starting to slip into judgment, and kind of halt myself so that I don't let the mind kind of spin these stories or start a rant on something. And so for me, kind of what has been really helpful is to stop myself as soon as I notice I'm doing it, and then bring whatever that thing is, whether it's a person that I'm finding is not necessarily to my taste or something I'm hearing, and bring that person or situation into my heart, and send it love. Because what my guides have kind of taught me, and what they talk about with a lot of my clients, is that, like you mentioned, Corey, judgment is separation. Judgment is making yourself different from something else. And as they will always point out, the Pleiadians always point out, everything is you. You are everything and everyone around you in your reality. And so anytime we are in judgment of someone or something, we're actually rejecting an aspect of ourselves, because even our reality is completely our creation. So when we don't like something that's going on, we're rejecting our creation. So we're rejecting a part of ourselves. And so what the guide says, have been saying to me, is that this is one of the most important things for us to overcome as part of our ascension process, is we have to realize it's all us. And so for me, that has kind of helped me, having that process of just bringing it into my heart, realizing that this person, this point of view, this thing is all aspects of me. Because then my goal is always then to get to neutrality on that situation, to realize that it's just another version, it's just another angle, but that it's at the, at the bottom line, it's all me, it's all my creation. And so as I've kind of played with that, I think I'm finding that it's helping me not be in that automatic judgment mode that's so easy for us to do naturally. And so it's helping me kind of be more neutral about things that used to be triggers for me. So for me, kind of judgment is all about coming back to the heart and realizing that we're all one. And then we can look at things objectively and we can see everything can exist. Everything is a valid point of view, even if it's not your personal choice necessarily. And once you find that place of neutrality, once you can look at someone with a different opinion than you, or a different political view, or a different view of what's going on in the world, and you can do it with just objectivity, neutrality, that's when you know you start to overcome judgment. So for me, that's kind of the process that I'm taking with judgment, after realizing it was a little more of a thing in my life than I thought it was. So for me, self-honesty is really important. Looking at, how much of the time are you in judgment, and then having a little process to kind of guide you out of it, and back into that neutrality. And once you can start to be around things that used to trigger you, and be neutral about it, to me, that's when you kind of know you're starting to succeed. So that's how I look at judgment. How about you, Yaila?
Thank you, ladies. So judgment for me is definitely a journey and a process, because I feel like I always have a big question, am I in judgment or is this a discernment? And I feel like the line where the two meet is very fine. When I think of judgment, I kind of think of it as like a spectrum, meaning there are levels of having judgment that are beneficial. It's kind of like when people talk about the ego. Judgment many times will have an overall negative connotation to it, but there's levels of it that serve us, just like we all have an ego, and there's levels of it that actually create who we are as individuals. So there's levels of it that make us who we are. And so when I think of judgment in itself, it's looking at where are these places that are in alignment for me. When I find judgment gets to be on the negative connotation is where I am wanting outside people or outside things needing to be different so I feel better inside. That to me is unhealthy judgment. That for me is when I'm out of neutrality. And so when I can judge something, meaning should I go left or should I go right? It's my own internal judgment as far as what's in alignment for me. I am looking at the possibilities and I'm making a judgment for myself to go one way versus the other, and it being okay, versus when I look at somebody else and see which path they're choosing and saying, oh, that's what's in alignment for them. I am in neutrality for it. I don't have to judge them. They don't have to think different, have a different opinion, do something different. I'm neutral because they have that free will, that choice. And I find that judgment, since we have that level of judgment for ourselves, is what creates expansion in our world. There is a level of judgment that is beneficial. We all are not meant to have the same opinions, want the same things, think, everything has to be a certain way, because there would be no expansion, there'd be no new desires, there'd be no new creation. And so there is a level of judgment that is necessary. However, where are you on that spectrum? Are you in judgment to be in alignment for where you want to be headed, or are you in judgment for outside things needing to be different so you feel okay? For me, I think my biggest practice has been, how can I still have my alignment and be totally okay no matter what somebody else thinks of me, what somebody else does, what somebody else, thinks I should be doing. There's a lot of different levels to judgment. And that's my biggest thing. Like, if I'm holding myself back because I'm worried about how somebody else is going to judge what I say or think or do, I'm not in alignment to myself. And then there's frustration. I'm not neutrality. I'm going to start nitpicking them. Or am I learning to be at a place of neutrality and saying like, hey, you know what? They can have whatever opinion that they want about me, about what I'm saying or doing. I still am going down this path because I've judged for myself, discerned for myself that this is an alignment for me. Um, all of us have different levels of integrity, morals, values. Some of our values look differently, and there's reasons for that too. I think on the whole, many of us will feel when we're out of alignment if we're hurting someone, if we are negatively impacting somebody else's reality, we will feel that on some level. And so when you're looking at judgment, I think the biggest thing is to look at, is it judgment to align you to your path, to your purpose, to what feels good? Or is it something that is trying to slow you down, stop you, or you wanting someone or somebody else to be different? Because the universe, I've just started having this saying, like, everything's working out for me. Everything's working out for us. It's a matter of our opinion and discernment and judgment on what's showing up. Because the biggest lessons in my life that were in the moment felt bad or awful turned out to be the biggest growing lessons in my life, and it's shaped who I am as a person. And so when I judge that, right, parts of it were bad. Parts of it was an awful experience. But then on the other side, parts of it were amazing and beautiful. And I wouldn't actually change any of it because it shaped who I am, helped me bring in different levels of understanding, awareness for the life I want to have for myself. So I feel like judgment it's a very it can be very convoluted. And is it good? Is it bad? Should we have it? Should we not have it? Bottom line is, we have judgment. We have judgment as part of our makeup as human beings, because we have discernment. We have choices in our life that we are here to make. And that is by design for expansion in the universe. Now, where do you go from that? Are you doing this in healthy ways to stay neutral, to support yourself and be in alignment for you? Or are you doing it in destructive ways where outside people or outside things need to be different so you can feel okay? These are big questions I've looked for myself and gotten more clarity on. When I'm noticing that I want something outside of me to be different so I can feel better, I'm like, ooh, I'm in judgment right now, like, and not in a good way. Or am I looking at these outside things and saying like, oh, how can I look at myself in a deeper way? How can I use this situation or scenario to align myself in the direction I want to go? So when I think of judgment, it's kind of a spectrum for me. I definitely intertwine judgment and discernment sometimes, and I'm not sure where that line stops between the one versus the other. the closest thing I can say is, alignment and needing things to be different, I think is that deciding factor for me. But ladies, do you want to add anything else as far as judgment goes?
I love what you said, Yaila. I thought that was perfect. The line with discernment, I think that's a critical point, because judgment isn't always negative. I think of the word, when I hear the word judgment, I think of it only in a negative context. So, but you're right though, the other end of that scale is discernment, choice, preference, kind of, I think maybe is a little closer to being kind of in the middle of the line. But yeah, great point. Great point.
It was interesting because when judgment, and I loved what you said about judgment, Yaila, and of course I love what you said too, Peyton, about judgment. And I thought, geez, I wonder what the definition of judgment is. So of course I looked it up, and it says the process of forming an opinion or evaluation by discerning and comparing. So I know for me, judgment comes when I am comparing this to that, you to me. Judgment, I know for me, has this energy of, it's like a wall that comes up. Now, wait a minute. And the comparing comes. I think, judgment is, the trap door to my mind shutting. So when a situation comes and I feel the trap door to my mind shutting, I'm in judgment. And when I'm in discerning, I'm not comparing. For me, discernment means, does that resonate with me? Does that not resonate with me? But the trap door to my mind is still open. And that's one of the things today that sadly has gone away, where we get to have differences of opinion and not throw judgment into it, closing that trap door to our minds, but being discerning and saying, oh, sure, I want to listen to what you have to say. And yeah, maybe with that trap door to our minds being open, we can learn something, because everything is about learning something, whether it's about yourself or something else. And I've worked with a lot of people that are challenging. And the way that I got through it, working, I always used to say 20 trillion hours with people that were challenging up close, is if I got into judgment and close that trap door to my mind, then it would be torture, because all I would be doing was focusing on my judgment and the things that I don't care about that person. And for the long haul, that was suffering. That's a whole nother topic. But what I do and have done for years is that when I find a person who is challenging, whether it's their opinion or the way it doesn't matter, but something that hits me, that makes me feel yucky, I find one redeeming quality about that person, and that's what I focus on. And I've had so much practice in that even though there are other things that might be just annoying to me that will cause me judgment, I say, nope, Corey, what's one redeeming quality of this person? And find it and focus on that. And in turn, I start finding the redeeming qualities of myself instead of judging myself. And so that's my Corey lecture for the day on judgment.
Thank you, Corey. I love that.
Your TED Talk.
I know. I love, and that's such a sweet way to do, to like flip where you're letting your mind spiral. Something else I noticed with judgment that pops up with people, and this is coming from, the theta healing and health coaching background. Every single person I've worked with to some degree has a level of not feeling enough, not feeling worthy, like good enough, worthy. We all have that on whatever the topic is to some degree. None of us are immune to it. I don't care what your background is. Every single person I've worked with, and it's been thousands at this point, has some level of that. And so to me, that's also tied into judgment, because what's enough? What's good enough? What would make you worthy? There's all these judgments that we have against ourselves and other people that would make you good or worthy or lovable. And our biggest work is really loving anyway, and just seeing, do we align? Does it match up? Does it, help us grow in easy flowing ways? Do we want more of that? Focus on that. If you're running to people or situations where you're always just having to do a lot of work just to maintain a bare minimum of interaction, maybe it's not worth it. And it doesn't make them good or bad, or you good or bad. Maybe it's just a misalignment. Maybe you hit the level of interaction that works and you learn some stuff, and send them love and go on your way. There's nothing right or wrong about that. We're all learning to navigate this, and we are all enough already. We're all worthy already. We're all lovable already. And then needing that outside approval gets us messed up. Having to approve other people gets us messed up. So I think judgment can be a really slippery slope if we let it, but it can also be really helpful with where we're trying to align to. So it's really, where are you focusing? Anyway, anything else, ladies?
No, just one last thought. For me, as we were going through all the different options, one thing that always comes up for me with judgment is we're making something else wrong. As opposed to discernment, for me, like Corey, you were saying at the beginning, as neutrality. You're considering options versus making something wrong or less than or not enough. So that to me, I think, is what I come down to, is how I define judgment.
Yeah.
The rejection.
I agree 100. Yep, I agree 100%. Yep.
Love it.
Great way to put it. Mhm.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this week's topic on judgment. Let us know what your thoughts are. Was this helpful? Do you have some new insights? And if you liked today's video, go ahead and give us a like, share, comment. We definitely appreciate any support you have. Helps our information get to other people who could find it helpful. Be sure to follow each of us on our different YouTube channels and social media linked below. We will see you next week with another fun topic. See you then. Bye.